As we jump into the S&P 500 and the Nasdaq 100, we talk about exactly what happened on the day. You can actually see we've been on a clear decline. And we went into on Friday explaining how today would set up, in my opinion, a sort of trap. Now, I also mentioned in that video on Friday, I did see some potential upside, right? I said I saw some potential upside. We got a little bit higher than anticipated of those key levels. I'm going to go over all of that very much in depth here, but I need to talk about some news that will come out tomorrow and things you need to be looking at going into Wednesday, which is a very critical news and volatile day for the market. Before we get into that, I have to ask you to consider doing two things: liking and subscribing every single day. I'm going over the market, going over what I like, going over the news coming out, and everything in between, non-biased as usual. But I have to tell you right now, I'm going to be completely honest with you. What do you need to know? I am in puts right now for October 21st, okay? So about a month on those contracts. I just want everyone to know, just so you know, being transparent with you. I'm as transparent always. Win, lose, doesn't matter. I'm going to tell you what I'm doing, right? Now, let's get in here. What are we looking at? First, I want to go to the daily chart and show you some key levels that we're looking at. On the daily, we need to talk about the Nasdaq. This was your key level that you were struggling at all day. You can actually come to the 15-minute. You can watch you were being rejected time and time again. End of the day, we saw some volume pushing us through. Now, I'm going to get back to this here in a second, but I want to talk about every single index, and I want to talk about the SPY and Qs. ES, the S&P 500 index. What's happening here? Look what's happened. You're pressing a little bit above this range as well, trying to get to that next range, which we were consolidating again for basically two and a half days, give or take. Now, where is the issue and why am I so bearish? SPY, look at where you're testing. Okay, you come right back to previous lows that you had from September 6th. Boom, perfect test, getting rejected end of the day, and you filled the daily gap that you had here as well in SPY. Love to see it. That's what we're looking at right now. End of the day, after hours, you're actually pressing through this a little bit more. We'll get into that here in a second as well. QQQ, the Nasdaq. What's happening here? Pressing right up into the day to where? Previous lows, people. Previous lows, September 6th. Got rejected there for a little bit as well. End of the day, pushing through this. Now, let's take a bit of a deeper dive. What's happening here? Now, okay, stay with me, but let's look at what's happening here. On the day, actually going to refresh that really quick so you can see the volume here. If you want to, this is the easiest way to look at the volume. Just go to Yahoo Finance, type in stock, ticker, whatever it may be, go over to historical data, and then it'll pop up your volume on the day. Now, this is your volume on SPY. Your average volume is 71 million over the past 30 days. Now, for the most part of the day, you were sitting very low. Majority of this volume came in near the last hour of the day, around 20 million of it. Now, if you want to say 40 million of this volume came in roughly after 1 o'clock. So you got a majority of that volume near the end of the day. Okay, now going into this, when I come back to these charts, I wanted to show you a better look at what's happening here. This is a 4-hour time frame. As we look here, in my opinion, it looks to me like you're consolidating back towards that 9 EMA on the 4-hour time frame. Going to the daily chart, what about this one? As we look back at Nasdaq, what happened here? Remember, very similar. You flagged into that 9 EMA and then you eventually pushed back down. Similar action going on here. But again, it's worth mentioning on this time frame, you are holding those lows on the daily as well. So I want to talk about this and go into my expectations for the rest of the week and big things you have coming out. Now let's cover the news really quick, then we'll come back to the chart. On the news, what are you looking at for this week in specifically? Okay, now tomorrow, what do we have? Tomorrow we have building permits. This is going to be big for the housing market. I expect building permits to drop. I expect them to miss, go down. Core CPI for Canada, irrelevant. No one really cares. Red Book, not really that important either. Nothing else is really that big in my opinion. Okay, I want to highlight that right now. The biggest thing here, in my opinion, is going to be building permits and housing. It's all that's really going to matter here. Building permits, most important, because that's going to be the biggest telltale sign of the housing market. Okay, next, going into Wednesday, obviously this is the big boy day, right? What do we have coming in? More home data, which permits will really give us the answer to this. And then going to the end of the day, what do we have coming out? Your interest rate projection, which this does not usually come out. This is because we're at the end of the fiscal year, September. This is because what's happening right now. We're going to give our expectations for the next year of interest rates, right? We're going to go over that here in a little bit as well. Then we have our interest rate decision, the FOMC statement. It's a big day. Wednesday, very big, very, very, very big day. That's going to really tell you the trend of the market. So going into that, in my opinion, you're really flipping a coin, okay? Now, yeah, I still have my puts, but I'm being transparent. It's very risky until that day. I'm going to be completely honest with you. Okay, now, going into this right here, your Fed rate projection. I want to talk about this. So for this year, the projection was 4%. What does that mean? So if you look at your interest rate decision, you're sitting at 2.5% right now, and there is a 20% chance of getting a full point hike up to 3.5, but right now they're anticipating a 0.75 to 3.25. If you come out higher than 7.5, you have to anticipate it's a bearish look to the market coming from a hawkish stance from the Fed. Now, if we go back to Jackson Hole, we know where they stood. We've known pretty much where all Fed members have stood. We know what their stance on the economy is right now, and it's not good. Okay, so we looked at that. We looked at all these worrisome parts coming out, things like that. Okay, now, going into this, going into the price action, what we're looking at here, in my opinion, the end-all, be-all level here is when we go back to the 4-hour, and it's going to see how you're going to hold this level here. I'm curious to see if, one, you can get a push back to the monthly. I don't think it will happen, but that's going to be a key level to watch. Also, again, I want to point out the danger of going to calls or short-dated puts. Either one of them, very risky. I have date on my positions. I have time on my side here, right? I am not going to do weeklies, 2 weeks out, anything like that, because you're going to get hit hard with any type of move. For instance, I got in about down here, the start of my position, and I'm only down about 15% total on my SPY puts, right? Even despite having such a strong move towards the upside. Why? Because I protected myself. I came into this with a little bit of a risky mentality, but also to the sense of I'm protecting myself on this position. It's a very similar position that I took to when you gap down right here, and we made almost 70% on that trade as well. Okay, so I'm giving myself time, swings, things like that. That's what I'm looking at here. Now, if tomorrow you come up and you hold about 390, 389, I might have to cut those out. Just wait, let it play by ear. But what I'm looking at right now to see if you're going to get a rejection from the SPY. Can you reject at this level? If you start to get a rejection from this point and you start to get this push back down from here, in my opinion, it's going to be confirmation for more continued downside. And I always tell you guys, what do I always say? What are we looking for? We're looking for a breakdown and then a retest. And what do we do at the retest? That's your opportunity to play the trade. Now, it doesn't matter if you look bullish, doesn't matter if you look bearish. This is your opportunity of whatever you're thinking right now. You could say, well, Tyler, I think Fed meeting is going to go bullish. I think this is what it's going to be. I'm just telling you, if you're looking at it from a technical standpoint, this is your opportunity. People ask on repeat, this is bread and butter. This is the opportunity. I'm willing to risk 20% in order to make another 50 to 70%. The risk to reward makes sense. It's simple math. That's why I trade. Risk to reward. Always try to have reward in my favor. And that's what I'm looking at right now. Also, going into this as well, looking at the market, things you need to be looking at and something I keep highlighting to everyone. Look at some of these big FANG stocks, some of the really big stocks that are out there right now. Where are they at on the daily? Let's just take a quick look. Look at Facebook Meta. This is your 52-week low right here, previous, back in June when you had the major drop-off. You've broken below 155 and are on your way down to 137, the COVID, believe, low. What about Microsoft? You're actually bouncing at your June lows already. I'm getting a little bit of love so far, but you actually broke below and then bounced back up. These are the big names out there, the very big names, okay? Now, there is, on the contrary, there are some stocks out there that are performing well, such as Tesla, probably the strongest stock out there. People keep asking me in my video, like, should I be shorting Tesla? And first of all, I can't tell you if you should short anything, but what I'm going to tell you right now is Tesla is probably the strongest stock in the market right now. So if you're shorting Tesla, you're betting on the strongest stock to go down, right? And that's not to say that's not a bad trade or anything like that. It's to say, why not short a weak stock so it's an easier stock to start dropping, right? There's less risk associated with it because it's already dropping. For instance, Meta, right? If you would have got it when you broke the lows, you'd be up tremendously. We mentioned that here on the channel, right? So I just want to highlight everything happening here going on to this, right? So you have a lot of these big names already getting crushed. That's what brings us back down to the big six, right? We're looking at the big six. I'm sorry, that's my interactive broker. But as you're looking at this, I want to just highlight what's happening, right? The big six is below that key level. And again, remember way back when we were watching this, was our key indicator to trade towards the upside. Once you broke out of this and got above this key level, we were full bull at that point. But now you've broken down, you've retested, and now you're coming down again. Okay, so these are areas of concern that you have to be watching. I'm not watching on a 5-minute level of what's happening right now. I'm looking at big time frames right now. I'm looking at the trend as a whole, and I'm trying to protect my equity at all costs. So when I look at these indicators, it points to downside for me. Does that mean it's going to come tomorrow or the next day immediately, and you're going to see 100% gains tomorrow? That's not what that means, okay? So I don't want people to come here, and that's what people are kind of getting the gist of this channel of, if I come here, I'm going to get my answer, and tomorrow I'll be rich. No, that's not trading. That's a get-rich-quick scheme, and you should run away from those at all costs. This is a unbiased view of the market. So even if I am looking at downside, if we got above this level, I'd have to be like, okay, the big six, the biggest stocks in the market are looking prepared for upside. So I want to keep you, level-headed while you're here, right? And so as we look back at this, there were some areas you were struggling at, right? I was watching this level right here, which you were getting rejected at, but you ended up pushing through. I want to mention that, and filling the gap here on SPY. You have filled your daily gap now, and you're rejecting so far off of these lows from September 6th. It's worth mentioning. Last time this happened was something like right here. I mean, you can go back and just rechart this. Look at how significant this previous low was right here. Came back up, retested, got rejected. You broke through, came back below, got rejected, and started pushing back down. You can go on and look at these areas and spot the level of significance. Coming back to here, you got a little bit push above, but you ended up pushing down and getting rejected from about this previous low level, right? So keep this on your radar, keep watching these levels, and this is my major concern here. Now, I want to look at some big picture things, because ultimately looking at these charts can only tell you so much. But as we go and we look at VIX, look at what's happening here. This is a very important level I recommend everyone watch and mark on your chart. Okay, I'm going to get rid of these indicators just to clean the chart up a little bit. And everyone's always asking what indicators I use. I have videos on all these indicators as well. If you go to my playlist and go to education, if you're interested, I don't really care if you watch them. I'm just letting you know. But looking here, the $24 level. There's a few major levels on the market, right? So going back to 2021, what I was looking at, every single time you would dip down to $15 to $16 down here on VIX, it was an indicator that we were probably going to get a pullback. Why? Because during 2021, April, basically through the end of the year, every time you came down to $15, $14 down here, you would bounce really high, which indicated the market would get a pullback, you get a leg down, something like that, right? But right now, during 2022, in my opinion, the level has been $24, right? I've marked out just a few of these levels. Since April, you can see you came up, got rejected, came back above, mounted, right here. Every time you touch between April and July, which marked out, just want to highlight, this marked out your first low that you made in June. Guess what? You bounced every single time, even when you were reversing in July. Now look, you got below it and you rejected multiple times here, got back below, rejected, and eventually you remounted it right now. And guess what? You're bouncing when you hit this level. You got a little bit of a dip underneath, but you're still bouncing at this level on VIX. Something to be watching out for. So $24 for me, I could see some more potential upside on SPY and Qs, just to let you know, based on the VIX, right? But if it comes on this region, for me, it's a massive indicator that we're most likely going to get a bounce on VIX. Is it 100%? No, I want to highlight that. Eventually, this level will fail, okay? All indicators eventually fail, right? You need to know that. What I'm looking at is the significance of this level and how many times it's been tested. Again, go do your own DD, go back test it for yourself. Don't just believe me, do your own research. Next up, JNK. Now, JNK, something I mentioned to you guys on Friday and Thursday. I was telling everyone, right? I was calling for the retest of the previous lows back in June, down here, early July. Guess what? You finally got into this region for a little bit of time and bounced back up. No surprise. Every time we come into a key zone, key level, what do we expect? We expect to get rejected or to bounce from that key level, right? Because that's where buyers are going to show up, buyers or sellers in theory, right? So if we come up to this level, we expect to get rejected down a little bit and then maybe coming back through it. Okay. So looking at JNK, going about to the 15-minute, how you responded on the day, you have moved up okay. But it's worth mentioning you are not going vertical, right? which is one of the most telltale signs of when you're really bullish, right? So when you're really bullish back here, look at how you move, vertical, 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 right? You're just kind of consolidating here and you're coming right back into a key area, which we've already had marked. And I have not touched these key areas in a long time. It's worth mentioning. If you come to the channel, you notice I do not touch these charts unless I have to show like a demonstration. Then I'll try to redraw them in the following video, but I'll always give logical reasons to why I mark out each area. Worth mentioning. Next up, the dollar. What's happening here? The dollar is consolidating. Where is it consolidating? At our key level we've had mentioned. Your previous high from August, right? And then you flipped it, you mounted, and you made a new high. Okay? Look at where you're mounting. Look at where you're at. When the dollar typically goes up, what happens? Typically, when the dollar goes up, the market starts to drop. Now, the big boy here is the US 10 versus the US 30. I've seen people in comments, people don't like this, and I don't really understand why. But again, I'm just going to talk about it because I like it, and this is my channel. So that's the cool thing of owning your own YouTube channel, right? So the inverse, this is the 10-year and the 30-year, right? This is showing when they invert. In my opinion, it's one of the biggest indicators of inflation and a big indicator of when you're seeing drops on the market. Now, we've seen great indicators here. For instance, going into March, you saw a major pump. And in April, well, what happened? Guess what? Going into June, boom, you had a big pump here. Right here is where you peaked and where your drop was, the bottom on SPY and Qs, Nasdaq, whatever you want to talk about. That's where you were, around the 14th to the 17th, give or take. And now you're pushing back up here, right? You're still pushing, still getting closer to inverted. You're less than 1% away from the 10-year being over the 30-year, which is one of the biggest indicators of when inflation is taking over and when you're queuing into a recession. You can go back. We can back test this data. I always try to back test this for you guys. This was not a recession. I want to highlight this. Everyone comments on this. I just haven't deleted it. But this is in 2018. We started seeing your big drop in 2018. If you weren't familiar, if you weren't even investing, you can go look back to what was happening here with a macroeconomic standpoint. Go look into all the big issues. And this is a very big reason into why we're looking at such a big and bad recession right now. We don't have the economic tools to help us, along with COVID. Your housing bubble, last time you inverted there as well. And then, of course, back down to your .com bubble. Okay, that's what we have there. Just want to show you the importance of what's happening here. And this is still going up even despite you bouncing on the day. Just want to show you food for thought. Now, before I leave you, I just want to clarify and show you what I'm looking at. I'm still looking at downside. I know people are saying, Tyler, your video, your thumbnail on Friday was so bearish. Guys, I'm a YouTuber. I have to, it's a part of my job. I'm sorry. I know you're going to be upset. Spoiler alert. I got to have catchy thumbnails. Okay. I got to have you clicking on them. It's what I do. Sorry. Sucks to suck. It is what it is. But you're never going to find me lying to you in my videos. Okay. So when you come here and I talk about something, I'm going to tell you exactly what I'm doing. If I lose $2,000, then I lose $2,000. Okay. I'm always going to show you the best and I'm going to show you the worst. I didn't even highlight how much money that I made on my last SPY trade. Right? Because I try not to inflate my ego or inflate how good we are at trading. I try to just educate you on what's happening on the market and showing you the news. But I'll always show you my losers, okay? I try to always show you when I have a big loser, just so you know you're going to lose in the market, right? It's a part of the game. It's what's going to happen. But going here, this is a bread and butter trade for myself, right? I just talked about it. You always look to break down, retest, and that's your entry opportunity. So if you're looking for an opportunity, this is the opportunity. Your stops, pretty tight. 390, 391. That's where I would be setting stops. Be watching here. But again, you're always looking for this, a break and a retest. What happens when you hit a key level, people? You expect a rejection. You expect a bounce, right? So if you're coming down to your new key level, you expect a bounce. It's not rocket science here, right? So that's what I'm looking at. That's how I'm playing the market. If you have questions, comment down below. More videos are coming. I'll have more of a stock breakdown going into Wednesday. Not so many stocks I want to talk about right now because I'm focused on SPY specifically. I'll see you tomorrow.